Okay, well, thanks for joining us. It'd be great if you could tell us about yourself and where you work and what your role involves.
My name is Evelyn Lester. I work as the executive director for the Office of Student Disability Services at Colgate University, which is a little Ivy school in upstate New York. I've been in the field. I'm a clinical psych by trade, so I've been in the field for about 25 years. Ouch. I didn't, yeah, about 25 years now. I started as a school psychologist with my master's degree, and then completed my doctorate and went into higher education. I've kind of worked all over in the realm of disability services, from low security prison settings to all the way to higher education. So I've had a nice, and also elementary, little guys, and whole gamut of things. I've also taught in the psychology department.
Interesting. What were you teaching in the psychology?
Oh, everything, a little bit of everything: intro to psychology, educational psychology, social psychology, abnormal psychology. So whatever was needed for the undergraduate course schedule that year.
And for those of us who are not familiar with Colgate, can you tell us a bit more about the institution and the types of students that attend?
Yes, we're small. We waffle between 2,900 and 3,100 students, give or take. So that's a little bit of waffle there, a couple hundred students. We are a liberal arts institution. We are a little Ivy. I think we're one of the best institutions in the nation. We attract a lot of neurodivergent students, I think, because we are a liberal institution where not only liberal, but liberal arts, so both, where it's a whole gamut of different types of things to learn from. We have a lot to choose from in terms of our majors: political science. We have a lot of pre-med, pre-law, STEM, but also the classics and literature. So it's a really nice opportunity for a student to maybe know what they want to do, but dabble in other things. Or if you have a set on pre-law and political science, I'm on economics, I'm going to go in that route as well. So you see a nice display of both.
And the students that come to see you in your office, what sort of challenges do they normally come to you with?
So the pandemic changed a lot of what we see, which I think it changed a lot for everyone. So before the pandemic, the largest numbers were individuals with executive functioning concerns, learning disabilities. After the pandemic, we did have quite an increase in mental health diagnoses. And so our leading disability category tends to be ADHD and executive functioning concerns and learning, but then a close second, sometimes surpassing that, is mental health challenges. But we also have students on the spectrum. We have students with physical disabilities. We have students that have diabetes. It's really a wonderful variety. And in Colgate, again, to talk back to that general population of 2,900 to 3,100, we have 1,000 students registered to this office. So that's a third our population. So it's a loud and proud office, which I really like. There is no shame in our students' game. And so we have our tentacles really far and wide across campus.
Amazing. And tell me a bit about your team that you work with.
So we have a team of 4.5 right now. We have a part-time proctor who just joined us. We have an assistant director whose strengths in the field are occupational therapy, sensory needs, executive functioning, and temporary disabilities. We have a new associate with us in sports and wellness. He has coached for 20 years and is now using those skills to help our student athletes with disabilities. And then we have an amazing newcomer to us who does assistive technology.
Amazing. So that's quite a small team to support such a large problem.
We'll get there. We'll get there. We're still young. We just, Evelyn, maybe starting just myself. Yeah. And I was saying that it was, we got the work done, but it was very compliance based. Is everyone just had absolutely what they need. Now we can flow into prevention and how can we help more? How can we be more a part of their experience at Colgate versus, are you good? Are you okay? Okay, next, sort of like a processing of students in a way. This is a much friendlier system.
Amazing. And I do want to get to talk about Genio, but I'm really curious, what are the challenges facing you and your team at the moment?
I just think it's it's a different time, right? Our students are facing concerns and problems that maybe we didn't experience when we were going through it. So I think that students are facing, they have this access to things, not my accessibility, but the media and drowning that with all sorts of information all the time. I think that's challenging for them. I think that they tend to sometimes be very perfectionistic and think they have to get it perfect on the right time first. And so they're very hard on themselves, very ambitious, but sometimes it can be debilitating, the perfectionism that they're trying. So when we work in our office, that is one thing that we do, but sort of looking at the general student has changed quite a bit. The student that I was in the late 90s is a lot different than the student what they're managing now. In a lot of ways, of course, just like every generation, they're going to be 10 times better than us in so many ways, but they also have in coming with that a lot more that's weighing on their mind. Information is coming at us constantly. There's no break. So I see that weighing on my students a lot. So it also has increased comparison. What is so-and-so doing compared to what I'm doing right now? And they have full and immediate access to that.
So how do you help support those challenges?
So it's a myriad of things. We have an excellent counseling center on staff. We also really work to try to showcase and offset a lot that they're being fed. So, for example, we have really high performing perfectionistic like pre-med or pre-law students. So what we try to point out is, that a lot of medical schools now, they aren't very trusting of a perfect transcript. They're like, I don't know how I feel about someone that has a 4.0 from start to finish. That just feels disingenuous. That doesn't feel real. They're worried about withdrawing from a course or taking a semester off, whereas now what graduate schools and doctorate level schools are seeing is that's actually normal, right? You go through the normal course of life and you may fall ill or a family member might fall ill and you have to take a withdrawal, or you found a particular course challenging, which is a good thing, because that will then determine what course of the medical field that you go into, right? We have different doctors for different things. If you were perfect in everything, I would suspect something wasn't quite right. The other thing too that they think is, did you challenge yourself enough, or did you just always try to find courses that you would find easy? Is Colgate just handing out A's, right? Like, people aren't buying it anymore. So we try to combat that with knowledge, that actually what you're facing is, if you've never made a mistake or you've never failed, not only is that character development, but you also learn a lot from that. So what I try to say to my students is, breathe and let me show you how actually failing or making a mistake is really good for you and can help you long term. Do you think that your med school, I'll just keep picking on med schools, because that's where we see it the most. Yeah. Do you think that they would like you to make a ton of mistakes in med school, or do you think they'd rather you make some mistakes in undergraduate school? Like, think of it that way. Do you think that they would rather that you really struggled with the classics course and only got a B because Jane Austen wasn't your favorite, or do you think or do you think they'd rather that you didn't do so well in anatomy? So just sort of focus on this moment of learning and what is learning, redefining learning. So having those conversations. But we also have a really well-staffed counseling center for those normal things that young people are going through and can talk about.
So you mentioned working with the counseling center. Are there any other departments or functions that you collaborate closely with?
Almost everyone. So one of the things I'm proud of, as I say a lot, our tentacles extend far and wide. So if they're off-campus study or study abroad, when the registrar's office, when they're doing course registration, student accounts, if there's ever difficulty or challenges with funding, the counseling center, again, we have what's called a first generation student program. We have a program for students who are brilliant and should be at Colgate, but don't have the finances. So that's our Office of Undergraduate Studies. So I can't think of an office that we don't really have a lot of collaboration with. Athletics, because our students are in all of these areas, and so it really helps that we can help them navigate those different arenas.
Amazing. So let's bring a conversation on to Genio.
Yes, Genio.
How long have you been using Genio at Colgate?
2024, 2 years, 2024. I honestly, it's been so blissful. It's by and it's like been eyes always. It's so 2 years. I was gonna say one. Good thing I asked you. 2 years.
And can you remember what you were doing before?
Yes, we were using human note takers, and then occasionally a student would want to use an app like Notability or GoodNote. And then for closed captioning, we were using Otter AI or CART services, which is live transcription.
And what were some of the challenges of that as an approach?
Oh, peer note taking is not my favorite. You're going to hear, I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat. You've been with me the whole time, so I'm going to repeat myself a bit. But peer note taking is not my, it's not the money I mind spending, but I do want to, you want a reinvestment on an investment in what you're spending. And peer note taking to me had so many flaws. For one, we're all processing information differently. So you're trying to figure out why the person summarized the information and took the information down. We could all take notes right now in this room, and we're all going to capture different things and say different things. And then you sort of make this awkward copy and it's anonymous. So then the student has to come pick it up. And then if they forget, or the peer note taker is ill, or if the peer note, I joke about our pre-med students, one of the requirements is they have to have horrible handwriting, like so many of our physicians do, so they can't read it. And so we were spending quite a bit of money on it, and it wasn't doing anything for the student. It also, Genio has, or I'm talking about Genio, let me talk to you back then. I wanted a system where they could sort of be learning as they're using it. There was like a self-learning component. There isn't in peer note-taking. You're just handed the information. That's like anti-academia, everything that we're against. It's just we're handing you the information. Certainly, the bulk of the students were also taking their own notes, so they're weaving it in with other notes and doing a little bit of that comprehensive learning approach. But typically what would happen is, here's the notes and take the notes. And so I feel like our office was wildly failing at note-taking services, because it would be a lot of, I can't read this person's notes. I don't know what they meant by that. Why did they write this and not that? The person's absence, the person's ill. It was getting really, really difficult. So we needed something that wouldn't get sick, that would have deep handwriting. And I was looking for something that would have a natural corrective learning process in it, which Genio does. So we've looked at a couple of others, but I wanted it all sort of rolled into one, in addition to the closed captioning and the transcription, and we found Genio.
It's amazing. And just before this conversation, we were having another chat. We talked about the importance of independence, and
Yes.
with your clinical psychology background, how important was it that the student could go through that note-taking process themselves?
That's right. It gave them the ownership over their own work. So there was two parts of this, not only for the student to take control and the confidence in their own work. It also develops that, but it also took away that excuse of, well, their notes weren't that good, or I didn't understand them. Like, it puts you front and center of your own note taking and your own learning. And again, it's consistent, right? It's always going to output sort of relatively the same thing. It's reliable, right? And so it was really great for the student to own that and increase that independence, especially with students with disabilities tend to sometimes feel insecurities or feel less confident in their abilities. This is leaning right into developing a learner instead of just handing them material and hoping that they absorb it in the way that you want them to.
Couldn't agree more. So there's a really strong argument to say peer notes not great for the learner, not great for learning. Mm-hmm. Were there any other challenges when it came to administering peer notes?
So staffing was tough. I don't know if every university handles this, but Colgate tends to have a very wealthy student body. So students weren't motivated by a minimum wage to hand over their notes. To them, it was, for me, when I was going through college, $20 an hour would have been out of this world. I would have done, anything. Note taking, absolutely. I'm there doing it anyway. So that money wasn't a motivator. And then also because we are attracting really brilliant students that are sometimes on those tracks of pre-med or pre-law, they're very competitive naturally. And so they would have these moments, which it's okay for them to, I'm more of a helper, so it kind of broke my heart a little, I won't lie. But they were very much feeling like, I'm not going to share all the hard work that I've done. And you can't force someone to do that. And then again, not to repeat myself, but you have to come in and then we make copies and the sustainability and we're killing trees endlessly and we're, and then they would forget to come in or someone would come in, forget to make the copies. And so it was a very costly without the return of your investment. It was really just sort of a mess. The hiring process, the train, it just really wasn't working for us. So we needed something much better. I don't like peer note taking.
So yeah, not great for the learner, not great for you either.
Yes.
As a department. So what were you looking to achieve by implementing Genio Notes?
So for one, it was a great money saver because we were spending about $100,000 a year on peer notes, and then they were colossally poor and it was a big failure. So here we are spending this money. And so we're able to get it, for us, it was a tremendous reduced annual fee. And so with any business, you're thinking about money and the cost and what you're putting out and what you're getting back. And then it was also to put the tool in the students' hands. And I really wanted them to learn how to also become better note takers. The bulk of K through 12, or secondary ed as we call it, uses peer note takers. So, the complaint as a professor or teacher might be, you're not a great note taker, but then we're just giving them someone else's notes. It doesn't develop or practice the skill of note taking, which we really use all throughout our lives and companies and business, anything that you do. And so I really liked, again, that it sort of had that corrective self-learning piece built right into it.
And did you experience any resistance?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
We did a lot. Well, I couldn't have rolled it out at a worse time. Our current administration had just came in late January 20th, I think it is. And so people were having a lot of fears about being recorded and about navigating the US's political climate, which is very divided right now on this issue. So that has to be considered. However, regardless of the political climate in the states, there is a wild and far-reaching misunderstanding of artificial intelligence. And so people were naturally fearful of it. They picture it like this sort of robot coming in and just taking over our planet. So it was a lot of fear, and fear was driving the resistance. So yes, a lot.
And that resistance mostly faculty or entirely faculty? So.
I would say nearly entirely faculty. There were a few students who the sustainability issues associated with AI refused to use it, but I would say maybe 2 out of 1,000 versus that it was mostly faculty that had the concerns.
And so how did you approach getting them on board?
Well, Genio, Tamsin was very helpful with that, asking a lot of questions, trying not to reinvent the wheel. What are other institutions doing? What have you seen? What do you recommend? Some things that we did on our own was I purposely connected with our computer science department that teaches AI and said, okay, I need your help and support in faculty meetings. How would you respond to this question so that I can learn? I swear I know your data protection agreement better than anyone in this room. Learning your data protection agreement and what it meant and how it affected us. I think that education on the UK actually having stricter data protection laws than we do. And then also issuing licenses to the naysayers, actually. Like, how about you use it and then tell me what you think and see how it works? So that was a lot of the work, was getting stakeholders right within the faculty to speak up at faculty meetings and talk about it. Typically, the business model side of me would say the cost savings would make a big difference in other institutions because we are blessed with a large endowment. That didn't work for me, but I could see other institutions saying we're saving $90,000 $80,000 a year. We're saving $80,000 a year. We're saving whatever it is. I think that would be helpful. For me personally or professionally, it was not. But those other things of saying we're trying to develop learners instead of just handing the notes. Can I show you how it works? Doing demonstrations during faculty meetings, answering the questions that they have was very helpful.
And were there any advocates for the software apart from yourself?
Yes, the computer science department talked about it quite a bit with me and thought it was a great move. My boss, who is an attorney and was able to read through your data protection agreement and all that language that she was like, this is very, very good. So she was a great supportive piece as it turned into turning that legalese into common language and saying, can I tell you what you're reading and what this means and how they're doing so much work to make sure that we're protected. So again, those purposely kind of getting those stakeholders was very, very helpful. And then, there are confidentiality reasons why particular students wouldn't speak, but they would give me their narratives and say, this is so great. Everyone has a computer out anyway. I'm not outed. You can't tell I'm even using it and how good. So I would give those qualitative moments too as well, so that people would sort of see, yeah, how would it feel if I'm dating myself, but when I recorded something at school, I had to put the cassette in and the 2 buttons down at once, and it was a very large, this is very private, and you don't even know someone's using it, and the students really liked that as well. So those qualitative moments were important too, in addition to actual facts.
Yeah, I think Evelyn did a really great job as well of kind of like translating that data protection agreement into those everyday conversations with faculty members and really understanding like what is the concern beneath this. If it was IP, is it, the way that we're sharing or not sharing data, and just Evelyn was just absolutely awesome in those conversations. And I think now she's done such a great job at kind of really helping faculty members to understand like those data protection policies that we have, the way that we I guess incorporate AI into the product as well, making sure that we're not kind of automating the whole process, or not I guess like there's some kind of like removing like the unproductive friction, but making sure there is productive friction there. And so Evelyn just did an awesome job at kind of explaining some of those things. And we were just speaking earlier about how those faculty conversations have kind of reduced so much, and things seem to just be like going so much more smoothly now. So
yes, in terms of numbers, when I rolled it out in January of 2024, nearly everyone wrote back and said no. I have about 2 a semester now. So it's so we're going from hundreds of no's to about 2 no's. And I will work with them to say, well, first, can you tell me what's wrong? Can you tell me your concerns? Can you, we can speak on it first, but at first it was just a collective, absolutely not, without really any dialogue between us. And now that's significantly reduced.
So if you could summarize your top tips for other disability services professionals or engaging with faculty, what would they be?
I really think this to have some, I did really appreciate to have some, I don't like saying canned because it sounds disingenuous, but canned language from you all was very helpful to start. But then to sort of what Tamsin was saying, get to the root of why they're really fearful. What is really bothering you? Are you personally get nervous when you're being recorded? Are there topics that you're talking about that you're worried that someone else is going to hear? Do you promote, encourage, or require participation from students in a way that they're going to be sharing something confidential and you're worried about it being recorded? So what's the real fear? And it's not going to be the same for everyone, but really figuring out what are you really scared of and how can I help to dispense of those fears. And then again, the allies and the stakeholders, going to folks that support it. And having the computer science department was chef's kiss because, this is their world. They're the experts. They're teaching it. They're teaching young-minded computer science and engineering. So having them say, and things that are really helpful in your everyday world. So there's so many people, including myself, I had to learn so much to be able to interpret what you do on the more engineering side. And so saying things that are a bit more layman's terms to folks. Like the computer science department is really helpful to say, you've been using AI since the 90s, you just didn't know it. It was on much, 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 much smaller scale. Every time you hit spelling and grammar check, every time you open your bank app, every time, we're using it. It's just how we're using it is different. And so saying those things to the everyday person versus, may I go over the data protection agreement with you, right? That wasn't solving it a lot of times. That was some of their concerns, but the biggest thing was, you mean I'm using it? Yes, it's running on your phone right now as we're talking. And how can we talk about that, the ethical and moral and responsible use of it, but also you understanding that you're safe and you're protected and that you've been really using it all along. So that was really helpful.
Amazing. And how did you approach getting the learners to speak about it as well?
Honestly, just asking. We're a small enough school, so we do check-ins. We use the Genio's data usage, and so we used it for both sides. If we had a student that we saw was running it all the time, we'd say, do you mind if we ask you how is it going? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? What's been, that's how I found out about the coffee thing. I that never would have ever come up. And then we would notice the data usage never even opened, even though I sent the invite. What's going on? Are you anxious? Are you or worried? Is this overwhelming? And so just asking, and then also pairing them together. So we would pair really high active users with really inactive users. Yeah, because they're not going to listen to this old lady. So they're going to say, so pairing students together. So we paired 2 deaf students together and had a very high user work with a very inactive user. And, one was able to say, like, this is really great. Let me show you how to use this. That was really helpful as well. And so that's how I picked up and listened to the narratives and was able to appeal to the human side of faculty to say, I know it's always a little, the moment you're being recorded, you sort of, right? You sort of stiffen up. It's natural unless you're on television all the time. It's natural. But can I show you how, the student was able to do this and wouldn't have been able, to do that. Just how amazing that is.
I love that buddy system. I could just instantly see how powerful that would be. Do you have any do's or don'ts when it comes to how you should pair people together that you learn?
So I stole a little bit from our peer mentoring program that we just have anyway at Colgate for younger students who are coming in through disability services, and we paired them with older students for a myriad of things. Anything, companionship up into tutoring and how do I navigate Colgate and I'm away from home for all of that stuff. So what we did was we just looked at students who either had similar or identical disabilities registered or similar or identical majors. And sort of depending on what their concerns were with Genio or how they used it is how we would pair them as well. So naturally, when we brought our deaf students together, the transcription and the live captions were a huge component. And they really picked up on how wildly accurate it is, even right down to the name of a restaurant that might be a little bit, something different or play on words. It would pick right up on it. And so they didn't miss the nuances that we all get as hearing ableists. So that's how we chose to pair them. It would depend. It'd be a little bit different, but the main parts were either shared condition or shared major minor.
Yeah, it's amazing. So it seems like an implementation detail that you've really innovated around. Could you talk us through how your timeline for implementing Genio and kind of how you ensured that it was successful?
Honestly, it was really easy. Y'all made it really easy. I think there are companies who don't have case management. I promise Tamsin isn't slipping me 20s right now. She's like, and say this and say this. We don't know what we don't know, and you all knew a lot of what we didn't know. So Tamsin being a case manager, that's so important because you have someone saying, you're not even thinking about this, but this might occur and this is what you should do. Because what they do is they take the time to say, tell me about your school, tell me about why you need this. Okay. Instead of just a lot of programs that we use, we have to go online and it's that canned FAQ, and you all have a helpful FAQ on there, but you sometimes need to say, this is what's going on with, so for example, a canned FAQ could say, we'll talk about the budgeting benefits of, well, that's not going to work for Colgate because of course, we are certainly mindful of our budget, but it's not one of of our top concerns. So if that had just been the canned response we got, that wouldn't have been helpful. So, having a case manager to say, this is how you should be unfolding it. This is what you should be thinking about. And then there's going to be things that are going to happen, and I'm going to be right here in your corner to help you. We've had Tamsin on calls with other campus stakeholders so that she could answer questions that I wouldn't know about, talking to our IT department, because as much as I joke that I could probably recite your DPA right now, sometimes I was saying words and I'm like, I'm feeling like, so that was really, really helpful. But honestly, the implementation of it was, we wrote out a campus-wide initiative on why we're doing what we're doing, why we've chosen Genio. There was other folks that we spoke to, why we chose you. One of the reasons we chose you is you're UK-based and you have better data protection than we do in the States. So that was something I kept saying like over and over and over. This is why we're not doing someone who's in the States. Because that's a question that naturally comes up, like, why are we outsourcing to a different area? And so we did a nice campus-wide initiative. Then after that, we then put through our next memorandum that it's coming. It's going to start in January. It's going to start the next spring semester, because our talk started in the fall. And then we're saying, okay, now we're going to do that. And then we also had us folks on sort of a little bit of walk-in basis, like we're going to be rolling this out. There's going to be a ton of influx of questions being available to people as well. But the information is important. People want to know why things are happening. And so it was first an initiative. I also presented it in faculty meetings. This is going to be coming. But honestly, the actual implementation of the product is very user-friendly and intuitive. It's very easy to use. It was very easy to roll out.
So were there any unexpected challenges with implementation?
I suppose I naively did not expect that many folks to just vehemently double down, regardless factual information presented, that they just won't use something. I am more of a person that I might say, I'm feeling a little nervous about this. Can I ask some questions? And then if you show me things that then show me that this shouldn't be a fear, I'll say, okay, all right, great, thanks. It was that I was really shocked that I could have facts and then they would say, no, still no. That was very surprising to me. But again, those have reduced significantly.
Great. So any kind of final advice for other professionals in your position for working with Genio and implementing Genio on campus?
I was talking a little bit earlier about cautioning folks not to not use Genio or not lean into it because of the naysayers. The naysaying can get very, I think Tamsin was also very much of an emotional comfort during this process because I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to explain it. So I think, and a couple of times when I felt that heavy of a rejection, I wanted to give up a couple times on something that I really believed was going to change the lives of individuals with disabilities, and not listening to it and really just plowing through head down and just information gathering and making sure that you sort of know everything about the product before you rolled it out. Like, we were using it on each other. We were practicing with it. I could talk about it pretty fluidly by the time I rolled it out. So I would say if there are folks that are really, really scared of it, just please just don't lean into that fear. Don't encourage the fear, fact-based and just really plowing through.
Great. Okay, so now you've been using it for over a year. What impact has Genio had on your students?
I am noticing that even more than my app users, and what I mean by that is we did mostly use pure note taking, but we had those few students. The students that were good note and notable, they've come over to the Genio side. I don't know if anyone's a Star Wars fan, so when I say dark side, that is not an insult. We've even had folks who were using different applications come over and realize their friends are using it, their peers are using it. When we look at our students holistically, knowing that student isn't embarrassed to go into a restaurant or to use the setting, knowing that student walks into a classroom and feels fully prepared and that they own it. I think when you walk in and you know that you're waiting on something to completely enjoy and experience, right? How awful that feels. I'm getting this experience at 50%. I'll get it 100 later. That's a really awful, awful feeling for them. And we have students that are doing all the readings, are taking that, really want to be prepared and present, and they were feeling like they couldn't be prepared and present because they were getting the other half of it a day or two later. And that's not what we want, and that's not independence, and that's not the learning that we want at Colgate. So being able to say day one, you are ready to go, and you can, you can have the reading pane look like this. You can have transcription on, you can have it off, you can do all, it's all you, was so empowering that it was actually very emotionally touching for my students. So I really love that impact. And some of those naysayers, one of the things I forced them to do was get a license and play around with it. And they have started using it for things as well. So we are doing focus groups on our advising at Colgate and trying to learn how we can be better advisors in majors and minors. And we used it for all of those sessions. And so those faculty that I've joined with, and of course, I'm a dog without a bone. I couldn't let it go because I was like, I noticed you're using the very product that you didn't want to use a couple of years ago. How's it going for you? So seeing those moments too has been amazing.
That's amazing. And you mentioned some students even decided to switch to Genio from another note-taking app. Do you know why they wanted to make that own?
They're clunky. They're not, I'm not an IT person, so I'm not going to be able to get specific, but they would say something like, like for example, when you pull up Genio, it's all on one dashboard. It's all on one landing page. A lot of what they would use would be a lot of closing out of apps and going back in. It would be things like it was draining their memory because a lot of those apps rely on a person's personal memory or personal cloud. And don't quote me, but I can't think of apps right now that have everything. So Genio has, you can type or you can write with the iPad. So a lot of my students say, it really helps to write. I want to still write, but I want to use it. So they would be using running good notes and then writing on the sider. So everything is right there. Transcription's right there. It's all right in front of you. Or if they use another app, their slides are still separate. And they're carrying, okay, I've got this printout of the slides and then I'm going to open my good notes. Everything is right there and organized for you. And I think that that's really state of the art. Otherwise, I was just explaining that a lot of other things for which I have needs that Genio doesn't provide yet. I'm using maybe 8 or 9 different providers depending on the student's needs. And it's very exhausting, not only for me as a provider, but also if a student has more than one need. They're opening this for this and that for this and this. Genio is just right there on a landing page for you.
It's amazing. And do you have any like data or statistics on student impacts?
I can get it. I brought my computer with me. Yeah, I would just say that one of the things that I'm really proud of is that one of the things I didn't expect to notice is for students that I wouldn't typically clinically think to offer note-taking, had heard about it from other students and have been able to self-advocate for it and say, it doesn't quite say in my paperwork, but when I see my classmate use it, I notice that if I do this because of my condition, if I find myself paying attention to something that shouldn't be my primary focus, because I don't like the word distracted, that is, that I'm focusing now on that it's still running and I didn't miss everything and I didn't think of it to use it that way. We tend to think of note-taking apps as, I was sharing, I have students without arms. We tend to think of the most obvious reason why you would use it, but students had really, spoken to me about, actually it would really work because of this and I didn't even think of it, and now we're able to provide it for them. So I foolishly reduced my licenses. I told Tamsin, I'm so sorry, we have to completely up that and change it now. And I didn't, some conditions that even clinically that I've been studying for over 2 decades that students have brought to my attention why it's helpful, that the impact has been in that way really, really wonderful. So we actually have more note-taking requests now than we did.
Talk me through some of the other pieces of feedback that you've had from students. Like, are there any anecdotally, like, individuals you can think of that had a really great experience?
Our international students, English second language. That is another thing that I did not expect because it has the different languages. So if you're language learning, I understand why a professor might not want that running. I do. But then there were students who, they have even more than one language. So English is their third language, fourth language, and they're learning really complex. They're not learning basic math. I mean, we're doing and especially at Colgate, it's a rigorous college. So those students that English second language services or English language learning services are not often offered in higher ed. They are in some areas, but it's not offered at Colgate. And so this was just a backup for them. Like, okay, I'm listening to my economics lecture, and if I start to get fatigued or if there's a word that's used, it's running right there for me in my most comfortable native language. And so learning wasn't impeded that way. That was another thing that I didn't even expect. And so they'll run it during that so that they're not, again, if a word is said to you and you didn't understand it, you might not even remember to say, Professor so-and-so, you said this word, can you define it? It might be going so fast. So that's been really helpful with my international students.
And thinking about you and your team, has Genio Notes streamlined your processes at all?
Yes, we use Genio a lot. I personally use it. I like to be, I'm not a great note taker when I like to be present. I feel like note taking, even just for the general population, you miss things if you're supposed to be watching because you're naturally looking down and taking notes. And so I have found that it's allowed students to be much more present, myself present, my colleagues present. We use it during those focus groups so that we could actually pick up if someone's face changed or if they looked like they were holding back. We might say, looked like you wanted to say something there, which if I was taking notes, I would have missed. And also it's been amazing for medical team and to use it to keep that HIPAA protected transcription as well that we've been using to ensure that the patient and the doctor are safe on campus because we have a student health center and we're also affiliated with our community hospital. So I like the protection of being recorded. It's a little suspect if you don't want to be. I'm like, what don't you want to be reported for? So I really, it's really helped the team that way as well.
So thinking about the future of Genio at Colgate University, do you have any future plans within disability services or even beyond, perhaps?
Not with. I mean, it's been great. I have ideas of more things that we want because it's been so good. But no, we don't have any particular plans for Genio other than increasing the licenses because I reduced it after we got so much pushback. And now I was like, this has been really great. Sharing it with folks that may not be registered through our office, but do have the English language learning component, but don't have a disability, sharing it with them so that they can use it as well. We have faculty that have been using it for research. And so they can keep their notes more streamlined. So sharing it more in that capacity, but we've been doing that. So nothing in particular.
And you talked about the needs of students and the challenges facing students have changed over the last 5 years. In thinking about your department, what are your future plans and kind of what do you expect to happen over the next 5 or 10 years?
I hope we continue to grow. We serve about a third of Colgate's population. We have a loud and proud disability office. So, I hope with that we can continue to grow. Again, I was a one-man band in 2020, and now we're already a staff of 4.5. We just recently constructed a disability cultural center on Colgate campus, which those are just starting in the States to celebrate, just like you would go to a women's center or an LGBTQ plus center. Now we have a disability cultural center. So we have plans like that. We're growing, which is very exciting. I think the traditional learner is getting very boring. And so people are really leaning into, I'm different, I see it this way, and that's okay. And they're coming forth. And it's tools like Genio that really let you lean into that. I truly believe that there are students that we're seeing right now that would have dropped out 10 years ago.
I'm just going to ask you a few questions to kind of summarize some of the things we talked about. So put into a few words, who do you say Genio, who would benefit the most from Genio?
The best from Genio. Honestly, right now, what I have seen, although I think everyone can really benefit from it. I am not a neurodivergent learner, but I use it at conferences, and so I'm benefiting from it. But the most I have seen is our deaf culture and our deaf population. It has, because even when they used things like the Roger Phonak system, I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, but the professor had to wear a lanyard with a microphone. It was very obvious what was happening. It was very outing for the student, and it was so wildly imperfect. It picked up background noise. And then the other thing is the professor had a lanyard on, but then if you're in a discussion-based course and you're in an auditorium and someone in the back is speaking, what we would have to do is the faculty member would have to repeat what was being said. And of course, they're going to miss things. It's not going to be in real time. It would delay the course overall. And all that did, I never had a single deaf student say, I love that I'm standing out. I love that the class is completely different because of me. I love that the professor repeats everything for my behalf. So even if they were really confident with their disability, it felt inaccessible and outing. And this, everything is coming up. And now what Genio does, I'm telling you, like you don't know. You're never going to believe it. I'm going to tell you about Genio. Is that it identifies that different speakers are going. And so sometimes even when we would get a transcript, say with Otter AI, it was just a big sort of vomit of the information. And now they're saying, okay, this is going back and forth and they can follow along. So for me, what I've seen is our deaf culture population.
Yeah, I think as well with like they're using like the ability to use on mobile as well, but it's kind of like a little more discreet. And I know you had a lot of feedback as well about like captions on mobile, and just it's been so important for us as well for you to give that feedback and to see that it's going somewhere. Yeah, that we listen and we try to incorporate it in. So this knowledge your students like being able to actually use their mobile as well and have the captioning on there, I think is like quite a big thing as well.
Yeah, the social engagement as well. Like I said, that I did not expect. And when that student said, I was able to get a coffee today, I was just sobbing with happiness, just what an amazing, and again, everybody has their cell phone on them these days. So you can just set it and people might not even realize that that's happening. And it's such a nice, again, if they want to talk about their disability, they can, but they don't have to. And that's what really changed is they don't have to. Tools are right in their hands. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw some research over a decade ago now that was looking into assistive technology abandonment rates. And what really surprised me is that kind of stigma is a huge factor in whether students actually continue using tools that can, really fundamentally improve their ability to do certain things.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. There is no, again, with something like a Phonak system, certainly that worked at the time. But it was very much, even though we would write plans, it was, you have to wear this. And then a professor would be, absent-minded and forget to put it on. And then the student would feel like they couldn't say, got to put your lanyard on, and then the whole class would be blown just out of them feeling a sense of embarrassment or that they were bothering someone. Or a professor would always remember to wear it, but their tie was brushing up against it. And so what the student is hearing in their hearing aid or cochlear implants, it's just, it was a good start, but there was so much that would hold a student back. And so, we have students, there have been students that wouldn't even want to wear their CIs or their hearing aids, much less ask someone to put a lanyard around. So this really, again, who doesn't have their phone on them? It's actually odd. I cracked a joke. I went by one of our local coffee shops and there was a gentleman out there just enjoying a cup of coffee, just sitting with you, no phone, just sitting. And I said, look at him, completely mad, just sitting there with no book or phone or just sitting and enjoying the afternoon was madness to me. That he wasn't tuned into something. And so it's actually the opposite now. If you're sitting there not doing something or not playing at your phone, you stand out.
And times change.
Yes.
We talked a bit about working with Tamsin. How would you summarize your experience working with Genio and the team here?
Easy, supportive. I like there's an element of prevention that Tamsin was really good on saying this might happen. It might not happen with you, but based on what you're saying, or quick response time. I would say, geez, this just happened in this meeting. I didn't expect it. And within the hour, I have like a canned set of responses that I was like, oh my God, that was really fast. I expected 5 to 7 business days. And so having that, it's the support, the case management also really sells me on this company. And when we have something, so as you know, Genio wasn't always on the cell phone. And what I was saying, what I really liked about it was we talked about it, and within a year, your programmers had it up, your engineers had it up and running. That is such a great feeling. It's going to take time. You have to implement it. We didn't think about it, but have it being heard and saying, yeah, I think that's something we can do. Just give us some time to figure it out. I felt very supported, and that is rare because most companies, again, this is our product, use it and figure it out. So that's why you end up buying multiple products to make sure you get the niche that you need. I have found that students, although they are still worried about the stigma and the embarrassment, that they are becoming much more confident and realizing that they are different, not wrong. I really like that. But I have found that very much in our ableist society that folks very much question when someone has a individualized or special need, that still is very real. That keeps me up at night. If I can't see it, then it's not really happening to you. That's something I still battle quite a bit, and that does keep me up at night. It bothers me. It bothers me that if we see someone in a wheelchair, we don't walk up and say, why do you need that? But if someone's using a service like note-taking, all of a sudden we have questions and we feel that we can ask them why they might need that. So I think the great shift between invisible and visible disabilities, they are not on the same playing field. And that we have to explain ourselves to folks really sort of bothers me and keeps me up at night. So.
And thinking about the opposite, are there any areas of progress that you're really excited about in terms of what our future might bring?
Again, I really like how folks are now leaning into, there's been research put out about why you should hire people who are neurodivergent, and why they actually can make companies more money. So people are really leaning into how folks who, with executive functioning concerns, it really grinds my gears when people say, well, they just daydream, or they just actually the way the mind processes, they're going to rule the world one day when we tap into it. And so I'm really excited that people are seeing the benefits of differences, that it's not, I always say disability isn't a dirty word, but it isn't a disability. It's just a different ability. And so I'm really excited that people are seeing those differences and how it can be really helpful for a team, that you see something completely different and non-traditionally, and it makes us so much better. I feel like we're really getting there as a society. But again, I feel like, not to go back to what keeps me up at night, but that there's sort of like they have to explain their value in my scenes. So that still bothers me. But I like the way that's shifting the narrative, that everything being the same is really an icky concept, an icky thing.